I read this, and I understand it. It's a compelling narrative, and it's crafted to feel like a key turning in a lock. But I'm going to push back on it. Not to be contrarian, but because there's a real power isn't in accepting the story, it's in recognizing it as a story you're being asked to buy into. The entire argument rests on a single, unspoken premise that there is one correct script for human courtship, and that script is man pursues, woman selects. Let me offer you a different perspective, not as a refutation, but as a key to a different door. The trap of the real. Answer, it makes you a passenger. By framing this as an ancient, unchangeable biological social law, it absolves you of the responsibility to define what you want. It says, here is the game. Here are the rules. You must play? It turns a complex, human interaction into a mechanical process where you are just a cog. What if the real move isn't to follow the script, but to question it? It centers the entire interaction on the woman's hope and the man's fear. The narrative is seductive because it gives you an answer. But the answer is still about her. Her hope, her social rule, her training. Your role is merely to be a decoder of her signals. The question of what you want, what you find interesting in another person, or whether you even feel like engaging, is secondary. You're reduced to a character in her story. It mistakes a pattern for a l'audace. Yes, many women look and don't approach. And yes, many men are afraid of exposure. But you know who also looks and doesn't approach? People looking at art. People watching. People lost in thought. People who are simply friendly. The narrative assumes all looks are an invitation. They're not. Sometimes a look is just a look. Trying to divine the one true meaning of every glance is a recipe for anxiety, not confidence. An alternative, the walking away. Move, here's a thought that the video's narrative doesn't allow for. What if the most powerful move in that moment is not to walk across the room? What if, instead of decoding her signals and fulfilling her script, you simply live your life? What if you catch her eye, give a warm, acknowledging smile, not a smirk, not a leer, just a, I see you, you're a human in the world, and then turn back to your coffee, your book, your conversation. This does several things. Pua. It disrupts the script. You are not following the expected decode and approach pattern. It establishes parity. You are a person with your own agency. You're not waiting for her permission or validation. You're not a prize to be won or a puzzle to be solved. You're just a guy living his life. It creates the most genuine invitation of all Doster. If she is truly interested in you, not just in the drama of the chase, she now has a choice. She can walk over to Evu, or she can leave. And if she leaves, you haven't lost anything. You simply weren't a match for each other at that moment. The window didn't close because you failed to act. It closed because it was a window that required you to be a character in someone else's play. The fear of exposure the video talks about is real, but this method sidesteps it entirely. You're not exposing a desperate want. You're exposing a calm, self-contained interest. That is a much more magnetic state to be in. The real fix. So what do you do with this? Not the video's advice, but with your own life. Stop counting looks. Das. It's an exhausting, unprovable data collection project. It keeps you in your head, not in your body. Start noticing your own interest. When you see a woman you find compelling, the move isn't to ask, does she like me? The move is to ask, do I actually want to talk to her? Not because she looked at me, but because I find her interesting. If the answer is yes, then your action comes from a place of your own desire, not from a sense of obligation to a script. Understand that rejection is not a social death. Das, the video is right that fear of exposure is the real block. The cure isn't to push through the fear and walk up to her. The cure is to realize that being seen wanting something is not a weakness. It's the most human thing in the world. The people watching you in the coffee shop, they'll forget you within 30 seconds. regardless of the outcome. The video is a very seductive piece of writing. It makes you feel like you've been let in on a great secret. But the only power it gives you is the power to better conform to a predetermined role. True power is choosing your own role. If you want to walk across the room, do it because A, you want to, because you feel a spark, because you are curious. Not because you finally decoded that she was sending signals. When you act from a place of your own authentic curiosity and desire, the outcome matters less, the exposure becomes irrelevant, and the whole heavy machinery of anxiety and over-analysis starts to dismantle itself. The moment you wish you'd crossed the room, maybe it's a moment to re-evaluate, to find a path that doesn't require you to cross anything but your own threshold of self-acceptance.